Universalist in Newburyport, Massachusetts. My name is Justin Murphy Mancini, and I serve as your Director of Church Music. We are living in challenging times. Forces press upon us that suggest we best live in fear, separation, and blame. Instead, we choose to come together as a church community committed to love, peace, and justice. Our core values are authentic connection, courageous action, love, spirituality, and wonder. Our mission and invitation to all of you is to come as you are, to journey together in love, to act with courage, and to transform our world. If you are visiting today or joining us for the first time, we are especially glad that you are with us this morning. As you join us online, there are links you can click to see today's order of service and hymns. If you joined from YouTube, the links are just below the live stream. If you joined on Zoom, you can find them in the chat now. If you are watching from our website, there are buttons below the live stream that you can click on as well. Every Sunday, we say that it is no small thing that we have gathered. This morning, it is a particularly big thing that we have gathered, so let us give ourselves to it. I welcome one and all to our church and our worship service this morning, and I would like to make a special welcome to Reverend Stan Barrett, our community-affiliated minister, who is joining us to lead this service this morning. Thank you so much, Stan, for being here with us. Thank you. It is good to be together.
And thank you, Justin. It is good to be here with you. Our call to worship is a responsive reading entitled, "The Journey of Love." You are invited to respond along with Justin. Where in our hearts is that burning desire?
It is true that we are made of dust, and the world is also made of dust, but the dust has motes rising.
Whence comes that drive in us?
We look to the starry sky and love storms in our hearts.
Whence comes that storm?
The journey of love is a very long journey.
But sometimes, with a sigh, you can cross that vast desert.
Search and search again without losing hope.
You may find sometime a treasure on your way.
My heart and my eyes are all devoted to the vision.
You are faithfully called to worship. Please join now in saying together our chalice lighting words as Justin lights our chalice. You can find the words printed in your order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. Each week, we also light 2 candles of peace, representing 2 places on earth we lift up and remember as a sacred encounter with our world. There are an untold number of places on the earth that need peace. These 2 we especially hold close in the service and through the week. After each candle is lit, we will speak the words for peace in English, Arabic, and Hebrew. Peace, salam, shalom. Our first candle is lit for Atlanta, important center of African American life and culture, but also the center of a political firestorm following the November 3rd election. The city is likely to continue to be the focus of controversy, given that the Fulton County District Attorney is carrying on an ongoing investigation of possible election interference having occurred during that period. Peace, salam, shalom. Our second candle is lit for Myanmar, whose people as a whole are undergoing the latest escalation of military intervention in national life. and where the Rohingya Muslims are suffering an ongoing genocide. Peace, salam, shalom. This morning we also light a candle of hope and remembrance in recognition of the COVID-19 pandemic. All those who are struggling for economic security, all those fighting for their health, and all those who have lost their lives. We will light these candles each time we worship for as long as we live into this worldwide reality. Please join now in singing our opening hymn, number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere. You can find the words and the music in the hymns document below the live stream.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
Please join now in saying our affirmation of faith, followed by singing the doxology, both printed in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by every tongue.
FRS member Lee Pearson will now share a reflection about love with us.
I'm just going to leave this here for a minute and let you notice what this photo means to you. Whatever you feel, what happens to your body? Do you feel a softening, an opening? Embody it. Feel it from the tips of your toes up to the top of your head. Did you notice how your thoughts and worries went away? You just embodied love. Now, for contrast, I invite you to think about something that's worrying or troubling you, something that you're anxious or fearful about. What happens to your body? Can you feel a slight contraction all over, how your neck shortens and your gut gets tight? This is the physical expression of fear, whether it's annoyance from a buzzing mosquito or playing a wrong note or the terror of a global pandemic. Our brains and bodies react the same. These are all different degrees of fear, but have the same whole body pattern of contraction. Can you feel how everything just kind of pulls in and up and off the ground like you're walking on ice? That, my friends, that contraction is the opposite of love. Most of us, I believe, would prefer to live in love, not fear. So let me ask you, how long does it take to transform yourself from that state of fear to a state of love? Think of someone you adore. Breathe. Now. 3, 2, 1. You can do it. I began to get curious about this type of transformation when I found The Honeymoon Effect, the science of creating heaven on earth, by one of my favorite scientists, Bruce Lipton. He delves into the science of being in love. It was a game changer for me, learning that the love hormones had such a tremendous positive effect on my body and that I could change my state at any time. I mean, I knew what love was, but I didn't really understand what it meant to embody it. But in less than a minute, I could transform from an ordinary going about the world state to a complete embodiment of love. So of course, I got curious about how could I explore it as a musician. Amazingly, I discovered that by fully embodying a state of love, I could breathe better and play better. My whole body just worked better. And then I began to bring it into my teaching. My work is helping injured musicians. And in this work, I have watched hundreds of musicians recover from the contracted state of pain, fear, and anxiety, and learning to play freely again. I learned about love from a most unexpected source, a dear friend who experienced a horrific tragedy. She lost her 2 young children to gun violence, shot by their father, who then turned the gun on himself. How could anybody recover from that? Yet this woman not only found a way to survive, but now embodies more love than almost anyone I have ever met. How could I not honor her journey? So it has been my practice in this pandemic, this time of stress, illness, anxiety, the unknown, and oh yes, grief, unbearable grief. It has been my practice to cultivate the state of love as much as possible. I believe it is the best thing I can do to keep myself healthy. Because we know stress hormones attack the immune system, right? But we don't often acknowledge how the love hormones boost our immunity. We've all had terrible times this year, and we long for so much. And some of us are completely alone with no pets and no one to touch or hug. But we have the power, at the drop of a hat, to experience love and its accompanying benefits. The practice is simple, and I invite you to try it. All I have to do is think about somebody, something, or some place that I love and adore, and my brain changes. The love chemicals start flowing, my body relaxes, and I feel more grounded, more whole, more at peace. It's a practice I can do 100 times a day. And so, my friends, when next I play for you in this space, I will be embodying our love.
This is the time in our service when the offering will be gratefully received. The generosity of our community is an essential ministry that supports the work of the church to live out our values, mission, and ends, both in Newburyport and beyond. Each week, 50% of the Sunday offering not designated as a pledge goes to a local community partner engaged in important efforts to transform our region. The February shared collection will support the Massachusetts Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. This coalition brings together over 90 organizations across the state, including the First Religious Society, to end the epidemic of gun violence by advocating for improved policies around gun safety and partnering with community organizations working to end violence in their communities. You can find the donation link in the chat box now, or in the video description on YouTube. You can also text a contribution by sending the word GIVE FRSUU to the number 73256. And of course, you can always mail a check to the church as well. Contributions from the weekly offering are down significantly this year due to our online worship format, so your generosity is especially appreciated at this time. The offering will now be gratefully given and received.
Many waters cannot quench love, cannot quench love, cannot quench love. Many waters cannot quench love, cannot quench
This is the time in our service when we lift up the joys and sorrows of our gathered community. I invite you to share your own joys and sorrows in the chat as I read those that have been given to us in advance. From Alex Measy and Tom Stites, please hold Alex's beloved sister, Jenny Sorley, and her husband, Bob, in your thoughts and prayers, in your hearts. Jenny has been diagnosed with COVID-19, and Bob is likely infected too. They live in a retirement community in Pennsylvania, where they're being cared for. Please hold Brenda and Jim Marshall in your thoughts and prayers as well. They share the sad news that Jim's brother, David, died suddenly while shoveling at his home in Peabody. Memorial service will be held in the spring. You're now invited to share your own joys and sorrows in the chat, and Justin will read them aloud.
We share the joy of Leslie McDonald for her niece Kelsey and Kelsey's husband Mackenzie, who gave birth to a baby William this morning.
We light one final candle to represent all of those joys and sorrows yet unheard that are present in our hearts and minds this morning. Instead of my saying words of prayer for us this morning, I want to invite you to join me in a form of group prayer. Various spiritual traditions have a practice of chanting or rhythmic repetition of a word or phrase that carries significance for the practitioner. In the Islamic tradition, this practice is called zikr or dhikr, which means remembrance of God and or of our deepest self, either of which it's easy to forget in the midst of life. Typically, one repeats one of the names of God, which refer to qualities or aspects or faces of the divine. And it's like calling out to the divine under that particular name. And again, it can be seen as invoking the corresponding aspect of one's deepest self. Well, today the word, the name, the quality is, of course, love. I invite you to join me in calling out to the depths, using a word in whatever language evokes love for you in the deepest, highest, most profound sense. In Hebrew, there's a word, chesed, which means something like loving kindness. In Arabic, that name of God is wadud. Maybe there's a word in French or German or some other language that says it for you. And of course, there's the familiar love. You pick the word. I'll suggest a tempo. Since we're not here physically together, I hope no one needs to feel shy about joining in an unfamiliar practice. Speak your word for love or intone it if singing feels comfortable. Do it out loud if you prefer, but I encourage you to feel free to just do it under your breath or even silently. You may even notice that your head wants to make a small movement in time to the rhythm, or your upper body to sway a bit. Just follow your inclinations. Please join me. Oh, love, oh, love, oh, love, 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 love. And now, as you continue to speak the word, I invite you to imagine that instead of your calling out to that deep place, that instead you are being called from that depth, called by the name, your name of love, 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 oh 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 love, love. And now let your chanting gradually sink into the silence, but continue to resound in your heart. Amen. So may it be. So may it continue. Those of us who know of the Reverend Michael Curry, presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church in America, probably know him, at least those of us who don't have much ongoing contact with the Episcopal Church, as the minister who preached at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding. His recent book is entitled Love is the Way. This is the beginning of the first chapter. I've entitled it Josie Robbins. You'll see the reason for that title immediately. In my own life, love has had so many, many faces, but among the boldest is the face of Josie Robbins. Josie, who's 85 years old as I write this, and still in my life, was one of the people who took care of me and my sister when my mother passed away after a long illness. When my father first asked her to help take care of us during Mommy's illness and after, she wasn't a longtime family friend. She was just a lady who stopped by his church some Sundays to drop off her neighbor's child before going to her own Baptist church. But she heard about our family situation and asked, "How can I help?" Soon thereafter, my father nervously welcomed her to our house and led her to the spare bedroom, where both twin beds were covered with clothes my father had managed to wash, but not to iron. Josie had never been in our house, hadn't met the children who wore most of those clothes, but she ironed every single garment with love. A little later, my father called. He was running late. Could she give his kids lunch? We, who had been instructed to play upstairs and not bother Ms. Robbins, came running down to meet the woman who would eventually be a surrogate mother to us. I can't remember the day, but she says that after lunch, I pulled up a chair next to her ironing board and didn't stop talking until she finished and went home. Moved by love, Josie jumped in, with both arms and never let go. She would take my sister and me on the bus to the W.T. Grant store in downtown Buffalo so that we could head straight for the parakeets and hamsters like we had done with Mommy. She made the hurt go away. She was the only person my tender-headed sister ever let wash and braid her hair, because no one else in the world was so patient and careful not to pull. She had dinner with us so many nights, and over the years was present for all our family events and big days, from my high school, college, and seminary graduations to weddings, ordinations, births, and baptisms, and on and on and on. Josie Robbins is what love looks like. The love I'm talking about isn't the love on a Valentine's Day card. Those are nice, but they're not what I have in mind when I say that love is the only thing that can save this planet. Unfortunately, in English, we have only the one word, love, for everything from telenovelas to Mother Teresa. And so the different dimensions and nuances have been muddled together, which has obscured love's true power to instigate a better world. Agape, love that looks outward, is the love I'm most interested in. You may not have heard the Greek word before, but you've experienced agape. Think about someone who impacted your life for the good, someone who stood by you, pushed you, believed in you, and maybe even sacrificed for you. Odds are they weren't doing it because it served them. They were doing it because they cared about you, because they wanted life's sweetness to open wide to you. We're all familiar with the custom of referring to the work of a professional as a practice. She practices medicine, we say, or he has a law practice. She's in the practice of dentistry, or his psychotherapy practice is full right now. Of course, there's another flavor to the word, which implies that one is not quite ready. Football practice is not the same as game night. And when I practice the piano, I'm preparing to perform, but not yet ready. There's an old joke about medical practice, the humor of which hinges on the play between these two meanings. If he's still practicing, it goes, I don't want him operating on me. I want someone who knows what he's doing. Of course, both perspectives on practice are right. One can practice as soon as one is licensed, but subsequent practice is needed to become what is often called a seasoned professional. Well, love is a practice too. And since it's Valentine's Day, let's talk about that. Okay, not just about love, but we'll start and end there and let love be the primary lens for viewing whatever we touch on. I won't try to define love. My aim is more to explore it, enrich our understanding of it, and remind us or raise our awareness about an aspect of love which often gets less attention than it deserves. I want to focus, that is, not on the inside of love, beautiful and essential though that is, love of heart and mind, love as feeling or thought. I want to highlight instead the outside of love, love of speech and action, of tongue and hands and feet. I want to shine a light on love as practice, on love as action, on doing love. Sometimes when one is feeling loving and thinking loving thoughts, but even when one is not. Yes, love is a practice, and it involves practicing and practices. To speak of practicing love means, among other things, that we can get better at it. To say it involves practices implies repetition. We might even say ritual. An example is organizing and taking out the garbage and recycling, something I usually do in our family these days. The activity typically has the same components each week, and I do them in the same or similar order. It's a Monday night ritual. From one perspective, it's just a ritual that has to be performed. But in the context of relationship, it's a love ritual, a loving practice. It's the same with dinner preparation, which is usually in Leslie's arena. There's more variety. The menu varies, unlike with my garbage prep. But there are repetitive ritual aspects. The relaxing glass of wine after a long day of work, the similar order and sequence of things, calling out to me when we're getting close so that I can stop what I'm doing, set the table, and we can eat the food hot. It's a practice. It's a ritual. It's love. And like garbage prep, it's sometimes accompanied by loving thoughts and feelings, and sometimes it's just something she does. But in either case, I'm suggesting it's love. You notice I'm not saying these activities are expressions of love or show our love, though of course we do put it that way often, and I'm quite comfortable doing so. But today I'm trying to push us not to give priority or preference to the inside of love. Today I'm encouraging us to think of loving action as being love, not just showing love. To imagine that the outer is as essential to understanding and recognizing love as the inner. I'd even urge us to consider that sometimes the outer takes precedence over the inner, and that change in the outer, in action, leads to change of heart. I remember learning in an introductory psychology class almost 50 years ago of a research observation that putting people of different races to work together on a project led over time to changed attitudes towards each other. Outer action led to change of heart. I don't recall who did the study or anything more about it, but it rings true to me as an example of how sometimes changing behavior must precede and may facilitate changes of heart and mind. On a legal and cultural level, the Voting Rights Act, and before it the 15th Amendment, Title IX, and the Supreme Court's 2015 decision in Obergefell versus Hodges legalizing same-sex marriage are examples of requiring changes in behavior rather than waiting for a collective change of heart. And many hearts are changed, and young hearts and minds formed differently because of mandated behavioral change and how it alters one's experience and perception of those different in race or gender or sexual preference. You might say, Stan, this is not love you're talking about. We may variously call it tolerance, grudging acceptance, equal treatment, acknowledging the worth and dignity of every human being, but not love. Yes. But when we speak of the beloved community, the love we reference is surely quite often as much aspiration as present reality. And acting as if we cared and as if we loved is a step forward, a step toward the desired state of inner care and love. Acting as if we loved can lead us inward toward what we might call a sincere or authentic love. You might say that acting within the law makes a ritual of mandated behaviors. We stop for red lights. We keep our speed within, well, a few miles over the posted speed limit. We avoid discrimination and even aim for diversity in our hiring decisions, our housing, and our college admissions. We do these things routinely and repetitively, whether our hearts are completely in it or not. The law, we could say, aims at a minimal default behavior, a ritual minimal practice. This is reinforced by the fact that courtrooms are positively drenched in ritual. Oyez, oyez, oyez. All rise. May it please the court, Your Honor. Loving humankind is a beautiful aspiration, but maybe the road that leads there begins with learning simple rituals like saying please and thank you. A 2008 book, Ritual and Its Consequences, an essay on the limits of sincerity, was a group effort by 4 BU and Harvard professors, scholars of religion, anthropology, and Chinese history, as well as a psychiatrist, psychoanalyst. Adam Seligman is the first named of them. He and his co-authors see the ritual and sincerity of the title as contrasting modes of engagement with life and the world. Both are present and necessary in every culture and civilization, but their balance varies according to time and place. Though the book doesn't suggest how these categories relate to love, I think ritual and sincerity correspond significantly to what I've called, respectively, the outside and the inside of love. One is focused on and defined by action, the other by the heart. The ritual approach is to do in each moment what one does or should do at such a moment, regardless of how one feels. The sincere approach has a standard of authenticity which tends to see ritual action as superficial or insincere. An example from relationship life illustrating this contrast would be saying I love you to a partner or spouse before going to bed after an unresolved, heated argument. The sincere point of view would likely hesitate, still feeling angry and unresolved, and not wanting to be inauthentic. From what we are calling the ritual point of view, the thought might be, I know I love him or her, even though I'm not feeling it in the moment. Saying so has the potential to put a healing semicolon on the process in hopes of finishing the sentence tomorrow more pleasantly. Seligman and the others see the modern West as badly imbalanced in favor of sincerity, following the Protestant Reformation, which was in significant part a reaction against what the Reformers saw as empty ritual in the church, repetitive ritual action without understanding. This struggle played out again when I was the minister of a nearby congregational church in the mid-'80s. The group elected in the congregation to oversee the spiritual life of the church was the Board of Deacons. I took to them my request that children be welcomed to receive the bread and wine or grape juice of communion. My understanding of that sacrament or ritual was that it was a symbol of God's feeding of us all, and that we should no more deny that to our children than we would deny them literal nourishment until they can understand and explain what food is and means. The deacons would have none of it. They held a deeply rooted and historically mainstream Protestant opposition to ritual action lacking in understanding. Children, that is, should wait to receive communion until they are old enough to understand and explain it, typically sometime in adolescence. Though I couldn't have put it in these terms then, they were standing on the side of sincerity, of interiority and explainable meaning. I was advocating for the fact that sometimes ritual speaks for itself, in a way that even the most sophisticated adult can't adequately explain. I would say now that both points of view have something to offer. We Unitarian Universalists certainly inherit from the Protestant strand of our heritage a preference for sincerity and authenticity of belief and expression, for meaning we can understand and discourse about, for originality over repetition, and very often for openness to the new over loyalty to the past. Yet we also show our love for each other and our shared values, and we nurture this beloved community with ritual. We make it a habit, a repetitive act, a ritual of getting up on a Sunday morning and coming to church, in person or on Zoom or YouTube. Some of us make a ritual of choir practice, others of monthly parish board meetings, still others of various committees or interest groups or chalice circles or visiting the sick. We do these things often when we feel like it and unambivalently want to do so, and sometimes when we're not at all feeling like it, but said we'd be there and will be missed if we're not, because others are counting on us, because we suspect we'll turn out to be glad when we've done it, or because it's what we do. It's our habit, our practice. It's a life-giving practice, a ritual which nurtures us, and through which we nurture each other and create community. And when we get here on a Sunday, most of the elements of our worship are predictable from week to week. We sing hymns, hear readings, listen to music, engage with a sermon. Further, some things are exactly the same from week to week. Our affirmation of faith, the doxology, the unison benediction, and recently, Reverend Rebecca's closing words, "Now, my friends, go out in peace and return again in great joy." These predictable, ritually repeated elements and words express and are our love for each other, for ourselves, and the community we are. These acts, and of course many others, are acts of love for that community, and we reconstitute it in the doing of them. Such practice, such ritual also provides a port in the storm of life, a structure, a predictability, a sense of safety and home. In a world and a life often most predictable in its unpredictability, a life chaotic, full of loss, and often seeming resistant to having a stable sense of meaning distilled from it. Seligman and his fellows give the example of a parent-child bedtime ritual as providing such a sense of structure, predictability, and safety. The father has a nightly ritual of reading to the child the same book or one of a few. The child soon learns the storyline and becomes familiar not only with the various characters, but also the tone of voice which Daddy uses for each. If Daddy leaves out a part of the story, mixes up the order of events, or uses the wrong tone of voice for a character, he is corrected. As the child grows older or circumstances change, the ritual can change, but usually only incrementally over time. Life is full of newness and change for a child, which can be exciting, but also scary. The bedtime ritual helps create a sense of safety, of home, a harbor in life's storm. And as for a child, so for us all. The authors use this example to illustrate what they call the subjunctive aspect of ritual. You remember the subjunctive grammatical form? It's the as-if construction, perhaps most familiar from the preface to Offering Advice. If I were you, that little were instead of was is a subjunctive form and signals an as-if situation, something contrary to fact. Fact is that I am not you, but I'm about to suggest how I would act if the situation were different and I were you. Seligman says ritual is like that. Life is risky, chaotic, and full of loss. Hard to wring order, sense, and meaning out of. Life is tragic. Not only tragic, surely, but tragic nonetheless. We can't count on being told the truth. Justice and equity are hard to come by, for some of us more than others. Bad things happen to good people. People leave us or we leave them. We don't live forever. Ritual action helps mend the fabric. Healing action, repeated time after time, because time after time, chaos and loss return. Living and acting as if safety were finally attainable, as if order were not a mirage, as if truth-telling and kindness were the way of the world. Living this way can help to make it so, help to change it from subjunctive to indicative, make it no longer contrary to fact, but the way things are, at least for here and now. And perhaps in a larger sphere, too. Maybe, rephrasing Martin Luther King, Jr., who was himself paraphrasing 19th century Unitarian minister Theodore Parker, maybe, though the moral arc of the universe is long, it does bend toward justice. And maybe we are meant to lend our weight to the bending. Could it be that teaching our children please and thank you and a default of kindness and honesty is a loving act not only for their well-being, but also for that of the world? And what if our coming here weekly to repeat our affirmation of faith and trying to live as if we believed it could help us give our hearts to it more fully? Maybe acting repeatedly as if we loved every sort and condition of human being will gradually conform our hearts to the deed. Perhaps ritual as if loving action can help our hearts conceive a more authentic inner love. And sometimes when losses intrude and our feelings are chaotic and the threads of meaning we had sorted from life elude us, a familiar ritual can help us begin the process of healing, of pulling things back together. I'm not just referring to formal rituals like sitting Shiva or funeral or memorial services. A segment on PBS NewsHour not long ago featured a man whose mother had recently died. She had had a daily ritual of doing the New York Times crossword puzzle. When he and his siblings returned to her apartment from the hospital where she had gone for an appointment and then died unexpectedly, they found that day's puzzle on the kitchen table, partly completed. He said, "You may think me fanciful, but it occurred to me that she had intentionally left the puzzle incomplete. As if, suspecting she would not be returning, she had said, 'Life and death are big mysteries. You won't be able to solve that puzzle right now. Solve this one.' Ritual and a ritual outlook can be healing, life-affirming, and instrumental in reconstituting a sense of order and meaning. Love's reality is to be found in feeling and thought, but also in practice, often in repetitive, habitual, call it ritual action. On this Valentine's Day, let us enjoy and revel in all the warmth of love's inside, all the deep interior knowing of loving and being loved. While we're at it, by the way, let us be sensitive to the loss and lack of love being felt by ourselves or others. But let us also celebrate the outside of love. Love as action, as practice. Let us rejoice in the practicing of it, the practices and rituals of it. Love, the feeling, finds expression in action, yes, but love is what it is. It comes to be and it grows because of loving action. In the midst of that rich complexity lies one clue to the great mystery, which is love. So may it be. Amen. Please join now in singing our closing hymn, number 121, We'll Build a Land.
We'll build a
justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll be a land building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come, build a land where the mantles of praises resound from spirits once faint and once weak, where the oaks of righteousness stand her people. Oh, come, build the land, my people, we seek. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Will you join me in saying our unison benediction? May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. If indeed love is the way, friends, then let us walk it together. And now go out in peace and return again with great joy. And may you come to know, suddenly or little by little, that you are loved with a boundless love, arising from deep within you and streaming your way from beyond the stars. Amen. So may it be, and blessed be.